Thank you for joining us at the Media Line. Rabbi Abraham Cooper is the Associate Dean of the Wiesenthal Center, a leading Jewish human rights organization with over 400,000 family members. Rabbi Cooper also serves as director of the center's Global Social Action Agenda. Rabbi Cooper, so much of what transpires between nations and people is cliched, both good and bad. Yet in the course of your work, you seem to turn cliches upside down, particularly in matters of exclusion, traveling where, as some have told you, Jews are not welcome. Are the times changing, or are we?
It's a great question. A little bit of both. The times are changing in one fundamental way, and that's, of course, social media, the internet, the fact that governments can no longer control the flow of information, even among societies that have been at war sometimes for years, decades, or longer. So young people especially have access to much more information. I started a project called Digital Terrorism and Hate, so some of that information is toxic and problematic. But overall, young people today, in the Gulf, for example, they know all about Israel. Whatever is breaking, the good, bad, and the ugly, they don't turn to their state TV to find out, morsels. They can, if they're interested, they can find out a lot more. So that's what I think has changed. What hasn't changed are the deeply embedded stereotypes that are not only carried by cultures and institutions, by people, and leveraged by leaders, but especially in many cases by religious leaders, by texts, by school books, and those kinds of ideas take a lot of work to overcome.
So the question is, in terms of anti-Semitism, do you feel that the social media works for or against this issue?
Overall, it's a negative. It supercharges the hate, not only anti-Semitism, but the targeting of groups and tragically also individuals. And as we see from some elected officials in Congress, you can create your own facts, your own following, and your own reality. And whether it's the denial of the Holocaust, the taking down of American icons, or direct hate, it is the way to, it's the most powerful marketing tool ever conceived of. And a lot of folks, who have that hatred, leverage that marketing tool in unbelievable ways. One other thing that's a game changer, and that is that everything local is now global, and everything global impacts local. We identify, as you know, when the Wiesenthal Center identifies anti-Semites, we're extremely aggressive. But beyond that, the ultimate goal is not to get sound bites in stories, but to help people to come together, and that's why we have the Museums of Tolerance as our educational outreach.
There's a systemic move to whitewash the Holocaust. No one ever thought that we today in 2019 would actually be saying this. And I recollect interviewing Simon Wiesenthal, and he stated unequivocally, and it was very interesting, that history does not repeat itself. People make the same mistakes. Do you feel that way?
Well, I think these are trends that you can predict. But the speed at which we're experiencing all of this is breathtaking, and it's taking place in the lifetime of some of the survivors of Dachau who are still alive, some of the liberators of concentration and death camps. And it seems that for the people who want to sort of rewrite history, to whether it's expropriating inappropriately Holocaust imagery, or rewriting history in places like Lithuania, Poland, Hungary, it's a part and parcel of the fight that we have today. And in an interesting way, it also underscores that everybody understands how powerful and important the legacy of the Holocaust is. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing these things.
Rabbi Cooper, the economic workshop presented by Jared Kushner and the American Peace Team took place last week in Bahrain. A surprising choice of place or not?
It's a tremendously important choice that was made by the U.S. because, from our perspective, this is the one Arab society that actually lives interfaith harmony. It's not the year of, it is the way that Bahrainis conduct their lives and their businesses. Until recently, virtually no one knew about it. The fact that the United States chose Bahrain to be the location is extremely important, even though, as you know, we were about 10 minutes away from not going to Bahrain if those missiles had started to fly. If the president hadn't pulled the plug, that would not have taken place. But it's a great message to the entire Gulf, and now you have all the other nations writing about this tiny enclave. And also, it's another message to Iran, not to mess with a place like Bahrain.
The timing that you personally had the involvement with Bahrain, with the king, really dovetailed with sort of everything that was unveiling over the last 2 years. Do you think your meetings with King Hamad helped open up things, or was it the Trump administration that brought us to where we are now?
Well, this is an interesting situation because I was interested in Bahrain because I heard there was an Arab capital where there were actually churches and Hindu temples and even a dormant synagogue. And I said, I got to go see this place. As it happened, I was scheduled to go just after the president's inauguration. And the fact that my boss and mentor, Rabbi Marvin Heyer, gave one of the speeches at the inauguration, that combined very powerfully led to a direct meeting with the king and his entire brain trust. And from that meeting, I asked what he would think if we invited his citizens as guests of the Wiesenthal Center to Israel. He said, I have no problem, they can travel anywhere. Within a year, 24 interfaith leaders came to Jerusalem. Another very important development that put Bahrain on the map was he wrote and signed a straightforward, what's called the Bahrain Declaration on Religious Tolerance, an Arab head of state saying that you have the right to pray any way you please, and you have the right not to pray at all. That was launched with us in Los Angeles, 400 religious leaders, later on in Mumbai. But the fact that we could hold up Bahrain as an example of living religious tolerance within an Arab and Muslim world is in many ways potentially a great game changer. We are constantly in touch with various leaders. They have a tolerance center that they're building. I believe that you met actually the sheikh who heads it up. So we're partners moving forward. And there's one other thing that everyone needs to understand about King Hamad and Bahrain is that it's a small country. It gets all its supplies through an 18-mile causeway from a country called Saudi Arabia. So while we may be making these great strides with a tiny little country, albeit one that hosts the American fleet, every step of the way that's been positive means it had the approval of the people who run Saudi Arabia. So as with everything else in the Middle East, you have things that look fascinating on their own right, but have very profound implications. And the fact that at this economic conference, which was a serious conference, IMF, World Bank, AT&T, and 8 or 9 people with kippot, with yarmulkes running around, that was news for about a half hour. I think the Saudi delegation maybe was shocked. Within 2-3 hours, it was just another conference. Of course, not for us, but what the real goal here, normal interaction and contact. When you have that, that will lead to peace.
Okay, Rabbi Cooper. So it's on a path. Some like it, some don't. Let's go back to the people. It doesn't trickle down always to the people. In Bahrain, there's something similar in the air, so why is it that the leadership doesn't allow this feeling to trickle down to the people?
Well, I think in a place like Bahrain, you have 2 schools of thought on the street. You've got people who say, let's get on with it, and I'd like to visit Israel. And the 24 people who came were not hailed as national heroes, and they got back off the plane from Israel. But they weren't put in jail either. The normalcy, the day after, the sky didn't fall in. It's a process. You're not going to win over everybody. But what we are doing specifically is not doing things secretly. We're doing it openly. Everyone knows that the Wiesenthal Center is pushing for eventually, hopefully earlier rather than later, full diplomatic, cultural, relations with Israel and the Jewish world. If Bahrain's the first, so be it. If it's going to be another country, that's fine. But if the changes are going to come, they're going to have to come. The window of opportunity in the Middle East is always shifting. It's there right now, and everyone knows that the administration, President Trump, is standing behind all of this. This is the opportunity. Whether it'll actually happen or not, I'm old enough not to predict.
Bahrain is different for many reasons, so what's next?
What's next is, whether it's Bahrain, whether it's the United Arab Emirates, whichever country it might be, the first country has to actually say, we're going to have an embassy, we're going to have a diplomat. When that happens, I think the other countries will follow through. And of course, core to all of these decisions in that region, though nobody will admit it, what do the Saudis have to say? I believe that the normalization of ties with Arab and Muslim societies and nations is what will bring the Palestinians to the peace table. As you know, at the economic conference, we were helping one Palestinian who had the guts to break the boycott to promote an idea of building a medical center on the West Bank that would benefit Muslims, Christians, and Jews. We hope it'll, come to fruition. But I think the most important message that needs to be sent by other Arabs, and they're sending it for their own reasons, nothing to do with Israel, is you no longer have veto power on the relations between the rest of the Arab and Muslim world and the State of Israel. Doesn't mean these people become Zionists, but the idea that after 70 years you can't come to an agreement, the idea is when we write you a check, you're using it to pay for more terrorism. And the idea is that the world gives you on a platter this economic conference, so you don't even show up. They have to deal with an existential threat from Tehran. And there's one other key issue that people don't speak about publicly, but I've seen it with my own eyes. The other existential threat and opportunity in the Gulf is if they don't create jobs for young people, those societies will not last. And Israel, with its high tech and other skills, exactly would be a perfect match with each of those societies to help create scenarios where young people can actually have a job. Things can change very quickly. There are two reasons why the PA didn't come to Bahrain. I think actually two words, if I can remember them. Transparency and accountability. Why would they sign up for projects that they have to actually show they complete when they get money from Germany, the EU, Japan?
On the other hand, Palestinian people on the street, they're leery of the Trump administration. The Palestinian Authority is saying no money has been pledged. What do you think the next move is going to be?
One of the things that the Palestinian street has to understand is that this conference was not about writing them a check. It was about sending them a lifeline that they could bootstrap up to a whole nother level of economic activity and prosperity.
But they can't do that without funds.
The funds are there, but it's not going to be a check. Here's money, and you'll be able to go and buy, a car and put a chicken in every pot. The funds are not going to be freebies. They're loans in order to upgrade the quality of their lives, the quality of their infrastructure, and put people to work and put money in their pockets.
Wiesenthal Center is going to open another year or so. What are the goals? Here in Israel, what are you trying to accomplish?
What we're looking to do is to, as far as Jewish people, instill a sense of pride. As far as folks from around the world, to show that while we may come from different cultures and religions, there is a lot that overlaps in terms of values. And then the exit strategy is, now get off your you-know-what and do something good for the world. We hope it'll be a place where people who have very strong feelings and views will be able to come to express them and maybe, just maybe, have their ears and eyes open to someone else's point of view.
Rabbi Abraham Cooper, Associate Dean of the Wiesenthal Center, thank you so much for being with us at the Media Line.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome.